Welcome back to the Claw Pod. My name is the Ant-Man, your host, or I think I'm better known as the referee of this show, with Ross and Marshall Von Erich with a special guest today. It got a little out of hand last week, so I had to call in your dad, Kevin Von Erich. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah,
big chief.
So good to have you on. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Guys, I already noticed that you're acting a little different since your dad is here. You're quieter, you're friendlier to each other, especially you, Marshall.
Yeah.
A little nicer to your brother.
Are they?
Yeah. He still spanks. It doesn't matter that I'm 30.
My mom always said, or still does, she's like, you're never too big to give a spanking to. Mom,
No,
I'm 47, come on.
Yeah,
when did I outgrow this?
Our mom will pull her heads down and slap us, all that. She's got a little Italian in her.
Yeah, my mom just slaps first and asks questions later. So,
Kevin, do you just give them a look? Is that what you do? Can you just give them the dad eye and they're good then?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
With little boys, it's like you want to, we can hit hard. I try not to lose my temper ever when I'm gonna hit my boys, but sometimes they do know their butt's kicked. And I mean that's just the way it is. But I didn't enjoy it at all. I really hated it. I had to act like I was mad as hell, and just could barely contain myself, But after wrestling came in handy, the interviews, because I could do an interview with them.
I'm actually glad you're talking about that, because that's something I wasn't prepared for as a dad. But sometimes the boys, when it's just Coral, they'll test her, push the limits, and especially Solomon's extra. I think God gave me a taste of my own medicine, because of course I like to push buttons, and so Solomon's that times 10.
You're a spitting image, man.
Yeah. And speaking of spitting image, dude, he spit in my face in front of everybody at the park yesterday.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. It wouldn't.
Marshall, he is exactly like you.
I know.
He was just like that. If it was funny but prohibited, then that was your payday. That's what you wanted right there.
Dad, you would have loved it.
Pushed it so far.
I was talking to another dad, and we were in like a deep conversation, and then a loogie just hits me right on my eyebrow, cheek, and then down my shirt. And I looked up, and Solomon's in a tree laughing as hard as he can, and he just dropped one right on my head. And I was,
man,
gosh.
Can't resist the cheap pop, man.
Yeah, it wasn't disrespectful. If it would have been like, shut up, Dad, and then a loogie, then it would have been different. But the fact that it was a joke, and it was funny.
Yeah, Von Erichs have really highbrow humor. Like, you got to get really philosophical when you want to make us laugh.
Yeah, the viewer has to know that we do laugh at crazy stuff sometimes, but we're a little different. Hey, what kind of world would it be if there weren't different people in it, though, right?
Right.
Yeah. And we've realized that just because it's funny to us, maybe it's not funny to we've stuff we thought was so funny, and then we'll post it or say it, and it doesn't get received well. Like, okay, we'll keep that in the circle.
That's right. That's right. That's right. We're so glad that you're here today. If you're watching right now on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind, give us a follow, give us a like, and let us know what you think of this episode. You can drop a comment here to us, or if you have a question too. We got a couple of questions at the end of this episode. Going to ask the guys about last week's that came through on last week's podcast. But this week is something special we want to do. We're going to try to do this at least once a month, and that is jump in the time machine, go back a little bit, and take a look at something that was happening sometime in this month back in time in world-class championship wrestling. And today we have Kevin on to talk about Star Wars. First, I'm going to read what Wikipedia has about Star Wars, and then we all have some questions we want to ask you, Kevin. So appreciate you being here and look forward to jumping into this. Here's what Wikipedia has to say about it. Wrestling Star Wars, also billed BTW Star Wars or WCCW Star Wars and WCWA Star Wars. So it all kind of had several different names there, all including the words Star Wars. This was a series of professional wrestling supercard shows promoted by the Dallas, Texas-based World-Class Championship Wrestling from 1981 until 1988. From 61 to 81, the promotion was known as Big Time Wrestling. That's where we get BTW, and World Class Wrestling Association from 86 until 89. WCCW held multiple Star Wars shows throughout the year, especially on or close to Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. None of the shows were broadcast live like how they might be done today, but were instead taped for World Class Championship Wrestling's weekly TV shows where several of the matches would end up airing. Kevin, the first, I think, and maybe the most obvious question is, how in the world were you able to use the word Star Wars in 1981 when the movie Star Wars was so huge?
That's probably why. Wrestling is never the kind of business that shied away from using someone else's name. I mean, I remember wrestling Billy Jack, and we got Sting and all these other names that, the people.
Van Dam.
It's kind of, all good friends, but it is funny how we do that. That's just how the nature of the business.
I thought you told me before. I just don't remember the story, but how y'all got the name Star Wars. I know something that not a lot of people know, but you and Mom were actually the ones that came up with the angle with Chris Adams, right? Of the chair shot.
Yeah, we are. We sure were.
Remind us of that. What happened in that?
Well, I've never talked about it before, Marsh. I'm kind of old school. That doesn't come easy to me, but
I'll get a spanking later.
Yeah, spanking my butt. But
I'm definitely getting spanked now. Dang it.
Yeah, it was that Chris Adams was. He was, he was a good guy, but he could be a heel too. And then whenever you play any character in the ring, you got to draw from something inside you, And so Chris really had that a little bit hateable side of Chris, And now that he's kind of, people know about him, and he's. I've always said about Chris, he did what he said he's going to do, and he was on time, and that's all I ask of anybody, And so I mark down Mondays with Chris as winner because I know he did some bad things out there, but I never knew about most of them, and so I have just mostly good things to say about Chris.
But Dad, as far as the angle though, the angle because at that point in time, Chris had been prominently babyface, right, and up to that point, and then he started teaming with Gino, which I thought was like a match made in heaven.
Yeah. Well, that was it. The girls really liked Chris Adams because of that British accent. I'll bet it was.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But, Gino was a handsome kid too, and so, and they were just,
Ross
just
talks
great.
about that a lot.
But he was, that's, we just couldn't get over that. It seemed like with the Freebirds were everywhere we went. The people wanted to see Freebird matches, and they had signed to go up north to wrestle for Bill Watts up at UWF up there. And so it was Gino and that was it. We really didn't have Chris. I think he'd been blinded by Gino or something.
Yeah.
Or was that later on? That may have been later on. This is going pretty far. Yeah.
I think Dad is still kind of in the kayfabe a little bit.
I know. I see that.
Yeah,
yes, I am. So.
I know. Yeah, that's cool. But
in case anybody's wondering, that was the dad look I was talking about right there.
Yeah,
if you missed it.
Yeah, I was going to ask more, and then I saw the look, and so
the shut up look. Yeah.
We're talking about Star Wars, and let's jump into the very first one. It was in 1981, and that happened at Reunion Arena in Dallas. This happened on June 4th, not around a holiday at all. The main event was Bruiser Brody taking on the Great Kabuki. Kevin, I was 4 years old when this went down, so fill me in on what you remember about that main event and any feud between Brody and Kabuki there.
Well, Brody was the way he was. He would. He would always come at you, but he could be a heel or a babyface. He was a monster, and you never knew what he was going to do. And Kabuki is really quick and fast and knew all sorts of stuff to do. But Brody was really like a bulldozer, and I really kind of thought he'd kill Kabuki that night. But Kabuki did great, and we always did. But he's kind of a crash test dummy himself, Kabuki was, because a lot of Japanese guys, you could jolt them real good, and stun them, and they would, you know, they'd kind of go on defense and they would end their offense real quick. But not him. He was a bulldog all the way to the end.
Hey, Dad, I had a question. It's kind of a little bit off topic, but Bruiser Brody, I wanted to hear from you, and I've always wanted to ask, but I've heard from a lot of older wrestlers that really knew Bruiser Brody that that he was not difficult to work with, but he did get in the scuffles a lot, but not a bully, but kind of punked out, you know.
But a bully.
A bully.
He'd
punk out guys that were smaller than him and younger than him, or, you know, newer guys in the business. But we've heard it so many times. 'Cause I look up to him. He's like a guy that we think is awesome or whatever, but you hate hearing that stuff about wrestlers. But what kind of guy was he? Was he a bully?
Well, you got to realize, son, you know, all of us were bullies, you know. I mean, we were all big, tough guys, and we've been getting our way all our lives, I guess, you know. And Frank was kind of that way, but your uncles and me, we'd have a code of ethics. We would never fight anyone that was smaller than us or, you know, didn't want to fight, you know.
Right,
but Frank didn't have that, you know. He was just different. And he would tear somebody up. I don't care if they were small, you know. He would just go after them. And it was like, that's Frank, you know. He's like a tiger shark, you know. You just got to remember that.
That's funny.
I kind of wonder if some of that is not the reason that match for that main event wasn't. It might have been a big reason that it was as brutal as it was, because I don't remember Kabuki being kind of in the same realm or same size as Brody.
He wasn't. He was knowledgeable, but he really had that great kick and some other things too, some good holds, but really Brody was twice the wrestler he was, actually.
Yeah. When a guy's that big.
In 1981, there were 3 Star Wars, including a Christmas Star Wars, this being the very first one. It happened on Christmas Day in 1981 at Reunion Arena as well. 2 rings, 14-man battle royal. I'm sure at the time that seemed like an enormous amount. I know Royal Rumble coming up this weekend, and that has 30 men in theirs and 30 women in the other one with only 1 ring. But I mean, probably the first time many people are seeing anything like this. But what I really want to know is, why Christmas Day, Kevin? Why was Christmas always a big day for professional wrestling?
Well, my dad had a theory about that. Thanksgiving and Christmas are the kind of holidays where, you know, you open the presents or you eat, and then you kind of lay around and watch football, you know.
What are you going to do? Yeah.
Yeah, but then nighttime comes and you really don't want to go to bed yet, you know. And my dad thought it's a great night for entertainment, and it proved to be for us.
Man, that's so smart. And he was to try.
And it wasn't just in Dallas. It wasn't just the Dallas territory. I mean, Christmas Day ended up being a big day for many territories across the country.
I got to tell you, my dad was a pioneer in the business. You know what else? Something else my dad came up with. He was coming out of Love Field one day, and they shut down the airport when he left. Well, it was the day that JFK was assassinated. Okay. And they shut down all the flights coming out. He was pronounced dead at 1 o'clock, but Dad was flying out like 10 o'clock in the morning, or whenever it was the last flight out. And so when he got to St. Louis, he was wrestling somebody big, but it was a sellout house, packed. And Dad got to the building, and the promoter, Sam, told him, he said, Fritz, we're going to have to cancel the show. President was assassinated in Dallas. And Dad told him this. He said, Sam, if you do cancel the show, the people are going to go home sad, already sad that the president has been assassinated. It's a bad enough day.
Yeah.
What if we did this? Have a moment of silence and a prayer, and we ring the bell 10 times.
Yeah, man.
And ring it slow. That was the first time that ever been done, and that's why we still do that in wrestling today.
I'm going to pull a rock right here for a second. I don't know if you can.
Dang,
the chills.
Yeah. Oh man, that's cool. Man, that's so fascinating, because it's. I mean, to take risks like that, Granddad was brave. You know, to be the first to do anything is. But to put on a show on Christmas or Thanksgiving, but it makes logical sense. Everyone's at home. Yeah, you know, everyone's at home eating.
But at the same time, it's a massive risk. You know, it's like
it is.
It's a horse.
But Kevin, for you and your family, did that mean you pretty much worked all day on Christmas Day?
Yeah. Holidays for us are we're eating dinner late at night, and
we were all had to adjust our schedules, you know, because we work nights, you know, and so all of us, we have our dinner about midnight, you know, 12:30. Yeah. I mean, it's just you get the habit you get in. In fact, when we're out of town, we'll go into a town. We leave for the show about 5:45, 5:30, but you order room service, and so they deliver it to your room. And by the time you get there after the show, it's cold, and we kind of get used to eating our food room temperature, you know.
Yeah. Getting guts of steel as well. I imagine by that too, having food that probably been sitting there for a while. Moving on to 1983, some questions here because this is the first year that you guys started expanding Star Wars, wrestling Star Wars, that is. We saw 5 Star Wars events. It seems to be when you started locking down all of the holidays, or at least several of them anyways. The first one was in June, but then you had the 4th of July, the Independence Day Star Wars on September 5th. You had the Labor Day Star Wars on November 24th, Thanksgiving, December 25th, Christmas. And if you move into 1994, just 1 month after New Year's. And clearly these were working for the organization, these Star Wars events, these big events, almost back before pay-per-views, these were your pay-per-views. In these, you also started moving to the Fort Worth Convention Center. Before that, you were doing most of them all in Dallas at the Dallas Convention Center or at Reunion Arena. Why was it important to you guys to move over to Fort Worth? Did you just have I know people, especially this kind of just goes into today's time where if it's too far to drive, you're like, I'll wait and see if they'll come here. If I go to Dallas or, so is that what Fort Worth was about?
We wondered about that so much. That was such a puzzle to us because our Fort Worth fans would not drive to Dallas to watch the show, and Dallas would not drive to Fort Worth to watch the show. We couldn't figure it out, but they would not drive that 40 minutes, wouldn't do it. But
worked out.
I guess that's it. So we felt like we had a loyalty with our Fort Worth crowd and with our Dallas crowd, and that's what we did.
Hey, Dad. So there was parts of Texas where the crowd was hotter than others, just more excited. How was San Antonio?
Well, Dallas was our great crowd, but when we go down to San Antonio, the kids were just so much more. I don't know. They serve liquor in both places, beer too, but it was all kids, and the kids were crazy in San Antonio. We had such a following here. It was like they'd meet us at the airport.
Oh man, dude, that is awesome because kids just make everything more exciting. I remember telling a promoter that I was like, why doesn't wrestling target kids anymore? Because that's what got us all here. That's what made us all fans. We're being a kid, seeing these larger than life superheroes, titans go at it in the ring,
100%.
And like that's why I still love wrestling, but it seems like that audience or guys around our age, they kind of just, it's ours, nobody else's, and kind of grew with it. And I wish I target kids more, but
that will happen though. I really think that day is coming. I'm telling you, if they would use the music and use a great entrance, here's what it seemed like it made it all happen for us. That when you open the doors to come to the ring, that first little girl, when she screams, they all scream. But I've been on shows before where no little girl screamed and no one screamed. But that it's a ripple effect. One of them screams, they all freak out.
You told us that, and so that's me and Ross's trick. Ross can scream like a girl already, so when we come out, he does this. He starts it off.
Yeah, I knew the friendship couldn't last too long.
Everyone's called that one
noogie rubs here. Yeah,
he has to do the puppet thing.
Ventriloquist.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word.
So are you saying you're the dummy then?
Yeah.
Oh, there. See, look at that.
Walk right into that one, buddy.
Ross just helping you out a little bit.
Which team are you on, Anthony?
Kevin, let me ask you this. Something significant that I was noticing in all of these Star Wars, how many different kind of stipulations for the main events there were, and some that you continue to use. And one particular is, I don't know if it could really even be used today, but that's a loser leaves town match. What would be an equivalent to that in 2025, would you say?
Wow. We had a lot of those loser leave town matches, didn't we? But
a lot of them.
Yeah. Why don't they do that anymore? Or do they?
Or they take your social media.
They did leave town. They did leave town, and they just ended up going to your town in the next stop.
Well, they move on to another territory when that happens. They're out.
And you can't do that today. So would it be a retirement match? I mean, we have to go all the way to a retirement match for that to be equivalent.
Yeah. Well, I guess depending on how many times you want to retire.
That's true. Well, if you're Ric Flair, it's 15, 20. Yeah. So.
Wrestlers are like cats. We get 9 retirements.
You get retirement. Well, speaking of Ric Flair, Kerry versus Ric Flair was another big main event. There's 3 or 4 in the Star Wars history. How big was this feud, not only for world-class championship wrestling, but for the Von Erich family?
Well, I'll say that the crowd is really hot because they always – the crowd, if they think that you can win, they really will come. They won't come if they think you're going to lose. They won't show up. Yeah. But they really thought that Kerry was going to win that belt, and he did win, right? Is that the show? Later on he won, right?
Yeah, not at a Star Wars. But
yeah, okay. Yeah, but Flair is such a talent. He gave such a great interview, and the interviews did it. When he's the world champ and he's won 2 or 3 to 4 times already, you don't want to show up if you think Kerry's not going to win, but they kept showing up. It wasn't just Kerry was just, he was a great draw, but Rick was also good with his interviews and really pouring his heart into him and really earned his money.
That's pretty cool. When the heel is so good at what he does, people are buying tickets to see him lose than to see the babyface win. They just want to see finally someone can beat him. But
I know a lot of those are on stipulations too. One by DQ or a count out or things like that.
Definitely.
The backslide finish kind of blew my mind.
It's so awesome though, but why not?
Yeah. Do you know whose idea that was to win with the backslide? Because that's Uncle Kerry, right?
Rick loves that finish.
That's what I was about to say. I bet it was a Ric Flair move.
Yeah, that was
That's Rick.
Yeah.
Well, so the last time that Kerry and Rick wrestled on a Star Wars event, can you guess what the stipulation was?
No.
Loser leaves town.
Really?
If there wasn't anything that said Kerry's going to win, that match was it.
Really, Kerry's going to leave Dallas? Really?
You guys better buy tickets.
Exactly. Yeah. But it is, especially then, and we're thinking with 2025 minds about 1984, 85 or whatever, right? When this was going down. But in 85, could you imagine the travesty of having to leave town as a Von Erich because you lost to Ric Flair?
Oh man.
I mean, I think people would have left Dallas, would have left the state with it.
You got to look at it through a fan's eyes, Dad, like a kid that really has watched you, watched you his whole, talks about you at school. And then, see, and then when they,
heart.
It breaks their heart because you're him. So you probably already have like a totally different view of your time at World Class. But I was talking to our buddy Dennis. He said when Uncle Dave passed away, he said that at school there was just a heaviness. It was a heaviness. Nobody wanted to talk. Everyone was just hurt. And kids were missing school.
They canceled school for days after that too, all around Dallas. People just couldn't concentrate on school, and the Texas legislature convened, for 3 minutes, and it was just.
And God bless Texas.
It's like this whole state of Texas got kicked. That day.
Tough, Ross, who did we talk to? David, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name.
Dave Meltzer.
Yes. So he was a student when Uncle Dave passed away, and he said that I think they were the same age, and he explained to us the gravity of that. And he said, it was in the beginning because the fans hadn't experienced devastation or tragedy yet with the Von Erich. It was the first one. And so for it to be the first one and be at the peak of you guys doing your thing, I bet that was, incredibly heavy to take as a state. And you guys are like the mascots of Texas almost.
Man,
it was terrible.
Yeah.
And it was one of those days where it's kind of foggy and drizzly,
Already.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Kind of like today.
It was.
The last Star Wars went down at the Will Rogers Coliseum. That happened on March 12th, 1989. In the main event was Robert Fuller and his brother Jimmy Golden, and he took on Kerry and Jeff Jarrett for the tag titles. Something interesting about Robert Fuller is I didn't know that name, and I was like, well, Robert Gibson, maybe they have something. No, it is Robert Fuller.
No, Robert Fuller, been in the business a long time. Great name. I wasn't there. I was down in Mexico City during all that.
Were you for that very last one?
I had trouble with Jarrett.
Had trouble with what? I'm sorry.
I had trouble with Jerry Jarrett back then. Had a lawsuit, and I don't want to bring it all up, but it was really unpleasant. It was in my Texas. And so I'd always said, if I'm going to leave Texas, I'm going to go south, not north. And I did. I went down to Mexico and stayed there for a few months.
Wow.
Dang.
Mexico City.
As I was looking up Robert Fuller and trying to figure out if I knew him, if I remembered him, I didn't remember him until more recent than what we're talking about, because he is also, and this might ring a bell with several listeners or viewers right now, he was Colonel Robert Parker in World Championship Wrestling.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Didn't he do some work at MLW, Ross? Or no?
Yeah, that seems.
I think he did. He did.
Seem familiar?
Okay.
Yeah. He did. Right before.
Seeing him young, I didn't recognize him, and then I saw a picture of him in the full Colonel Robert Parker garb, and I was like,
he was in MLW.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Didn't he manage you guys?
Yes, sir. Yeah, he did. Or
an opposing
us.
team.
Against in Dallas. And man, Dad, he had the best things to say about you. He's just a good guy, really good guy.
Oh, good.
A lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, that was the last one, 1989. Out of all of them, and I know this is going to be like picking one of your kids, and I know is your favorite, and I know it's Ross.
We all know. I'll even admit that one.
I was going to ask you, could you have a favorite Star Wars?
Well, it's funny. Probably back then I'd been a little different, but now that I'm sitting here on this day, looking back, say any time we wrestled together, the more of us, if I had a Dave with me or a Kerry, it was a great time.
Heck yeah.
Once Dave died, it was Kerry and Mike, and that was fun too. But it seemed like when Dave was in that ring, me, Dave, and Kerry, it was just like a great big glass of chocolate milk. As good as it gets. Yeah.
There's never a time that's not good.
Yeah. Oh man, I understood that. We really, and we know you. We've spent our whole lives just holding on to every word you say, every story you've told. Ross and I know. We know some of your stories better than you do. We remind you of the details and stuff.
I know you do.
And so that time where some people would say, would you say going to Hawaii hurt your career or was good? And I would say it only was good, because during that time in the Pacific, we were no distractions. We're out in the jungle, just me, you, Ross, the family. And we just, Dad, you built us. You really did. And Ross and I really feel like it's the time. Time is now.
Sons, think about it. You can't wonder when Dave and I were in, I think it was Yokohama, Japan, or a big Coliseum. We went up the very rafters up there. How could you and Ross poke around in a building, going looking for the rafters? I know we could do that, but to find that spot where Dave and I were sitting, that was God talking to you guys.
100%.
Don't tremble, don't be dismayed, be courageous, and boldly kick that door in.
Yes,
because it's yours, son. This is your time.
And who am I to say I'm not ready? This is too big for me. Yeah. The Almighty God has put us here, and He's saying it's time.
Yeah. To channel my inner Mean Gene, but in this case, how about my inner Mark Lawrence? February 11th, HEB Center. we keep saying we don't know yet. We keep saying this has to be the return.
We're buying tickets, baby. We'll be there.
Yeah.
You got to stop telling people you're going to buy tickets. AEW is going to make you buy tickets to just show up and wrestle. And then pay you to wrestle, right?
Hopefully when I show up, they let me in. But
Dynamite. Yes, I believe they're taping this on a Tuesday, or it's going to be a special live on a Tuesday because normally Dynamite on a Wednesday. It's coming up on February 11th, HEB Center, just north of Austin, Texas, in Cedar Park. Great tickets still available. And I mean, if it's not now, if it's not February 11th, then when do the Von Erichs return to AEW? Now, officially All Elite. I think this has to be it.
Let me tell you this about February 10th is a day where all these huge things have happened for our family.
Okay.
And February 3rd is the day that Joe Kristen was born, but it's also the day that Dave died.
Yeah, that's right.
February the 10th is the day Jill was born, and that's the day Carrie died.
Wow.
February 10th is the day where we burn our Christmas tree, and we thank God for all these things that we don't understand that are coming our way, and we're just taking them with such gratitude. And so I say February 10th is on the other side of the earth in Hawaii, where we're so probably, I'm telling you guys, this is going to be your day.
Yes, sir.
February 10th to celebrate, February 11th to do it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Kevin, thank you for your time today, and thanks for being on. First, let me say, if you have questions for Kevin and especially for Star Wars, drop them in the comments here. Or if you're listening right now on Spotify or on Apple Podcast or iHeartRadio, you can drop us an email anytime. theclawpod@gmail.com, and everything you can find at theclawpod.com. And then, Kevin, if you're cool with it, maybe sometime we circle back on this and answer some of those questions. Would you be cool with
that? I'd be glad to. I had a great time. And you were so good with these Star Wars shows, I could have never remembered that much.
Yeah, I do.
So,
it's hopefully just some of it sparks some memories, and hopefully some good memories too. And
Dad, we told you he was awesome. We were telling him how good you were.